What's the fastest you've seen a crowd go from excited to horrified? I was at a Bo Burnham show he was recording for hit Netflix special, but unfortunately this part didn't make the cut. He was cracking jokes as usual, then asked everyone in the audience to crack their knuckles on the count of 3. It was the most horrifying evil sound any of us had ever heard. Frick, that gave me a good belly laugh. Wish it had made the final cut. I was at a 4th of July fireworks show in FT Walton, Destin, Florida. The show was being staged from the inlet from the Gulf of Mexico to the bay. People were watching it from the other side of the inlet, the Highway 98 bridge, and from their boats on the water. The first salvo launched, but one of the shells exploded either in the launch tube or just above and ignited the rest of the show on the ground. Some launched a little bit before exploding. What was supposed to be a 30-40 minute show lasted 1-2 minutes. As the first shells blew up, I could see the silhouette of the technicians as they ran, like a stop motion movie. The technicians were cool as heck since none of them were looking back at the explosions. I never realized how big the bursts were until I saw them going off on the ground. Everybody was trying to get away. We were being hit by pieces of fireworks. They weren't just landing on everybody, they were hitting us. My dad started the boat, but realized we couldn't move. A lot of kids were watching the show while they floated in the water. We were yelling at the other boats to stop because of the kids in the water. Fortunately, enough people heard, listened, or realized what the problem now was that they stopped and locked everybody in place. Nobody was seriously hurt or killed, only a few techs were treated for minor burns. On that day, those techs outran Usain Bolt on the beach, wearing safety gear. The technicians were cool as heck since none of them were looking back at the explosions. I just about lost it here. You have a way with making a disaster story funny. I was brought to corridor once and the matador got his leg impaled by the bull while he was trying to get over a fence. The crowd started screaming and booing the bull like it was a foul move. I was like, LMAO, the dude freaking stabbed it. What was it supposed to do? Recite poetry? The bull must have been so disappointed to have the crowd turn on him in the middle of his long, slow, agonizing slaughter. I, along with an entire beachfront of about 80 plus people, watched a boat back up and chop a lady up into pieces. It was bad. What the frick? Woodstock 99. Everyone was super cool and chill, and all of a sudden it felt like the wind shifted. It was palpable, like you could cut the air, it was so heavy. Got a super bad vibe, so we packed up immediately and left. By the time we got to the first gas station, reports of fire and rioting started. I wonder why we get those feelings like that. Like we get feelings where we can tell something is wrong or something bad's gonna happen. 10 years ago or so, I was watching fireworks for 4th of July with family and friends. You know how the show usually ends with a bunch of fireworks going off at once? Well, that seemed to be what was happening, so people were cheering. One of my friends suddenly gets up, turns to us and says, "Something's wrong. We need to move." I had no idea what he was talking about, but in that moment, I noticed that one of those big ball fireworks had gone oof near the ground, showing only a fraction of the ball. Literally a second later, fireworks were shot into the crowd. It's not like movies. There was no screaming or fleeing for our lives. Everyone just froze. Only 2 fireworks exploded in the crowd. At that point the fireworks were spent, and there was just a deadly silence. Only one of the fireworks hurt anyone. It was one of the ones that are small but really loud. I think a mom and her son were hurt. But even as EMTs rushed to treat them, the silence still hung over the crowd. Very slowly, people started to walk out of the park somberly. Went to see the Pokemon movie with my fellow group home residents as a treat. There were maybe 70 of us there. Most had never been to a movie theater before, so it was a pretty big deal. The house even splurged to get everyone a small soda, candy, and a portion of popcorn. This was literally the best day of most of our lives so far. We get settled in, taking up most of the theater, when the credits started and the lights dimmed. We were so excited. Pokemon, the movie, was about to freaking start. Opening ads start. We're silent the whole time in anticipation. Then the credits never ended. We thought, because this one ad seemed to go on forever, some kind of a spoof of an alien movie, maybe a play on Star Trek. Credits rolled. Lights turned on. Nobody spoke. Every single face was deflated and so freaking disappointed. Someone screwed up and played Galaxy Quest instead of the, brand new at the time, Pokemon movie. Nobody talked the whole way back to the house, but as soon as we got there so many kids lost it. I didn't end up seeing it until like 10 years later, and it blew mind haha. I was at a Russell Peters stand-up show in a large theater. He starts some banter with the guy in the first row who had a huge tattoo on his arm saying Skylar, or similar name. He asks all about Skylar. It's the guy's daughter. He starts making jokes about daughters, some sexual innuendos etc, and then asks how old Skylar is. The guy in the audience goes, "She passed away." It was pure crickets after that. Last week at a BLM protest they were letting anyone come up and speak through a megaphone. This man got up and started talking about his newborn son and how he wanted to make sure we have a better world for him. He then started talking about love and unity and the guy essentially had the crowd eating out of the palm of his hand. Then he brought up Bill Cosby and how he was arrested on allegations and the crowd turned instantly. The entire assembled students from the elementary school where teacher astronaut Krista McAuliffe taught at, who were broadcast live to the world, as they watched the Space Shuttle Challenge explode seconds after takeoff, killing all hands on board, including their teacher. Oh yeah, we had an all-school assembly to watch it, on a tiny TV up on the auditorium stage of course. I was in 3rd grade, we barely understood what was going on. The most unnerving thing was watching our teachers weeping quietly and trying to look strong for us. Philadelphia, the 4th of July fireworks show in a public park downtown. I think 2013, we are all in a field on blankets watching fireworks when we see in the distance a wall of people running at us. Someone yells they're shooting guns and suddenly it's everyone running. Turned out to be a false alarm I think. Very surreal to be a part of a mob like that. Several years back and my band opens up for a hardcore punk outfit from Illinois at an all-ages venue where they have a sci-fi theme to their show. The singer dresses up as a mad scientist and the other 3 members dress up as his evil robots. They also have old television sets plugged in around the stage playing 1950s B-horror movies while they play. No one including the people running the venue have ever seen these guys play before, but going off of the theme we are expecting something awesome. That is until I'm backstage putting my equipment away and notice them all pounding back shots of tequila. When it's their turn to play they're so hammered they can't even make it through one verse of a song. The singer ended up drop kicking one of the TVs into the crowd of about 200 people, which caught fire. This caused the sound guy to end their set right there and they were banned from the venue for life. I've never seen a crowd go from happy to oh crap so fast. One of my buddies saw the Stooges in the 1970s. The band started the show playing raw power with no vocals for about 10 straight minutes. Then Iggy finally stumbled out. He made it through about 3 songs before he just fell the frick over. And that was it, the show was done. There was a guy performing risky stunt dives in a river for money. He pulled off great stuff and people were clapping and clearly hyped. One of the tricks went really bad and he crashed headfirst into a rock from a decent height and killed himself. I always remember what Penn Jillette said at the end of his nail gun routine. It was like, we find it morally wrong to put someone in real danger for entertainment. And I have to agree. A friend of mine decided it would be fun to try and see if he could smash a beer glass on his head. Up until then he was just being an enthusiastic drunk and had some positive attention. He then decided the beer glass thing was a good idea and promptly executed it. Head wounds bleed a lot in the first minute. Crowd went for more. You're cute to fuck, he's gonna die. I sobered up in an instant and got a semi-clean towel for him to stop the bleeding. Thankfully head wounds also stopped bleeding pretty quick in most instances. Detroit Tigers almost perfect game. We all saw the play and the dude was out. We all start celebrating. Then we slowly realize the ump called him safe. Celebration quickly turned to the opposite. Technically not horrified but still the fastest 180 I've seen or been a part of. Detroit sports and officials turning a moment of elation into a moment of sadness in an instant. Name a more iconic duo. When working on a kids show a child goes missing within the first 15 minutes of the show starting. Show had an emergency stop so the parents could plead for the child to make himself known. Nobody was allowed to leave their seats or leave the building. Whole building had to be searched. Everyone assumed the worst, but after half an hour they resumed the show even though the kid still had not been found. 10 minutes later we got word that the kid had wandered out of the building and was found safe and sound around the corner. To make matters worse, the show was Rapunzel. You know, where the story centers around a kidnapped child. Rapunzel. You know, where the story centers around a kidnapped child. Hey now. They made a fair trade. I was at a Van Halen concert a few years back and David Lee Roth comes on the mic and says this next one is from our new album. I was at a Rolling Stones concert about 15 years ago. As soon as Mick said that Keith was going to do a song, everybody suddenly had to go to the bathroom. WWE's Over the Edge 1999. Owen Hart fell 70 feet to his death during the event, and the company inexplicably continued on with the show after he'd been taken to a hospital. That's kind of fricked up. Monday Night Football, November 18th, 1985. Washington Redskins vs. the New York Giants. I was pretty young at the time, so being allowed to stay up late on a weekday was a rare occasion. During one of the plays, Joe Theismann was sacked by Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson of the Giants. The entire stadium went silent as Theismann would end up suffering a compound fracture of the tibia and fibula. What I remember most vividly is that the broadcast kept replaying it over and over again and seeing Shin snap at a 90-degree angle. It made me physically nauseous and had to walk out of the room. If I recall correctly, following the injury, broadcasting policies were changed so that constant replays like this would not be shown in the future. Seeing Alex Smith's leg injury live was just as bad. I literally screamed in horror when that happened. Not quite horrified, but cheering to booing back to cheering in a matter of 5 minutes. I was at a music festival and a mid-tier headliner came on about 15 minutes early. Halfway through his first song, they pulled the plug on he and he is ushered off stage. Then some lady comes on stage to talk about sponsors. The entire crowd starts booing, and she walks off the stage mid-sentence. The DJ comes back on a minute later and says, "Frick, I've never had that happen before," and the entire crowd erupts. 7-8 years ago during a concert there was an earthquake. Not too huge, but enough for some speakers to fall and to scare the crap out of those attending. At a music festival, Bluesfest, in my city Ottawa, we had a stage collapse in a windstorm a few years back. I was at a music festival in the UK where US rapper Watsky was performing. He started to climb the rigging to the side of the stage and next thing he is about 40 feet up above the crowd singing and dancing. Everyone is going crazy. I remember turning to my friend and saying, "He's surely not going to jump from there, is he?" Because at a lot of his gigs he will do just that, albeit from a lot smaller heights. Next thing the crazy bastard leaps into the crowd with little to no warning, plummets to the concrete floor and hits a couple of people. Instantly the security and show staff shut everything down. Looked like he was dead and he injured a couple of people, but everyone survived. I don't know if this counts, but I'm a huge fan of 90s rock. Korn, Slipknot, Seether, Mushroomhead, etc. Anyways, I've always wanted to see Marilyn Manson in concert and he was opening for I think one of the mentioned bands above a few years back. Anyways, he comes on and just looked horrible. Kind of slurring, but whatever, I get it. So like 4 songs and he starts singing Beautiful People and mostly everyone seemed into it. Well, maybe BCTX and it was an outdoor venue over 100 degrees, but he just goes, "Frick it, you'll suck," and walks off stage. Took a few seconds to register with everyone he wasn't joking and every starts booing and cussing. I was legit excited and it just turned to garbage so quick. Funny enough, I had a similar experience with Manson at a festival. He slurred his way through about 2 songs while falling all over the stage before he just wandered off and never came back. As it was a festival we had another act to go so people weren't too upset, but it was very strange. We were all 17-18 on a school trip. Typical week away doing rock climbing, archery, camping, etc. At the end of the trip we gathered in a big hall for one final gathering and then out of the blue there was a demonstration on how to effectively kill a chicken. Using a live chicken that was killed in front of us all for some reason. No warning. So it was a fun week at the KFC training camp, which ended in a game of chicken. Sting from the Police and Shaggy were touring a few years ago. Most of the audience was there for Sting. One of the last songs they did was Roxanne. Halfway through they switched to Mr. Boombastic. Never seen a crowd turn on an act faster. Was working as a backstage manager in a medium-sized concert venue. We had quite a famous band with a crazy singer that used weird props. On their rider, a list bands give to venues with their wishes. They demanded we arranged 2 buckets of pig blood. Of course we did not do this. Show was going well. People were having a good time. Until the singer took out a steak knife he stole from our restaurant and started slicing his arms open. He was really making deep cuts and it was horrifying to watch. Blood was everywhere. Most people in the audience were shocked. Some were dry heaving. When the show was over the singer was dripping blood all over the backstage area, smearing it on the walls. I was fairly young and scheduled to work alone that night, so I was way in over my head. I tried to reason with him, but at that point he was very intoxicated and there was no point talking to him. Our backstage area looked like someone was murdered there. When I tried talking to their stage manager he shut me up very quickly. He was probably sick of dealing with venue staff complaining about the singer. He did this crap all the time. The band was notorious regarding these kinds of crazy acts. I had to put up with a lot of crap working as a backstage manager. Bands wrecking the backstage rooms, making a mess everywhere, being sexist, being too fricked up to stand on their feet, you name it. But covering the whole stage and backstage with their blood, that was a first. We had to repaint the whole area because there is no point trying to clean the blood smears. Fairly shortly after I changed careers because I could not deal with that anymore. The station nightclub fire. Small packed club. Great White was playing with unauthorized pyrotechnics. Suddenly caught the building on fire. Emergency exits were locked and people jammed the exit door. 100 died. Thankfully didn't see it in person but there is a YouTube video showing the whole thing. It is a very traumatic watch though, so wouldn't really watch it unless you want it imprinted strong enough in your brain so that you will always look for exits when going into a crowded area for the rest of your life. I watched the singer of a band call out somebody for sitting down during the show and tried forcing them to stand up. It was the disabled section. That was Dee Snider. He was mortified when he found out. He talks about it in one of his podcasts. Pink Floyd often would have giant floating pigs released during the concert. You know, inflatable balloons. This would happen like halfway through the show. While people are smoking tons of pot, drinking, doing God knows what other drugs. So by the time the pig is released it's basically like God descending from the heavens. People were losing their crap at the pig. Well, it got caught in one of the wires and caught on fire. You've never seen so many stoners fall to their knees in terror, fear, sorrow over the death of a giant inflatable pig. There is no God anymore. His bacon got fried. I think this is the only one in this thread where I wish I was in that crowd. When a horse goes down hard at the races, although it splits the crowd, the compassionate ones go to horrified. The incompassionate ones with money on another horse don't give a frick. I was at the KY Derby the year 8 Bells ran with the boys. I had placed a bet for her to show and was so excited when she came in second. From where I was, I could see the finish but the crowd was quiet, horrified when she was euthanized on the track. I don't think I cashed in my winning ticket. When I was 10 and in a restaurant in Disneyland Paris, some of the Disney characters had come to visit the restaurant and everyone was excited to see them and they walked around the tables having pictures with people. Mickey Mouse got the most attention because he is Mickey Mouse. But then as he was walking he accidentally kicked a toddler who was crawling on the floor. Shock and silence while the child cried and Mickey tried to comfort it. The child was fine so everyone forgot about it a few minutes later, but that was some mood whiplash. Personally, I blame the parents for allowing their child to crawl on the floor of a crowded restaurant, since that is unhygienic and potentially dangerous given that everyone was getting tunnel vision for the characters and likely would not have noticed the child in their path. Mickey certainly didn't. St. Patrick's Day 2012. During a football, soccer game between Tottenham Hotspur and Bolton Wanderers, a player, Fabrice Muamba, collapsed on the pitch due to cardiac arrest. The game was televised and I was watching it at my local pub. The pub became eerily silent. There was a weird sense of things not being good and everyone was concerned for a player we barely knew of. Football fans might be loud ruffians, but there's a lot of respect when things go wrong. Fortunately Fabrice survived and recovered, however he retired on doctors' advice. He was lucky that a cardiologist was as a supporter. If I recall correctly, he rushed to a pitch and took care of everything. Other footballers in such cases didn't survive. Puerta, Fea, Jean-Vivien Foe. The climax of the last Twilight movie is a fight scene that goes on for 10 minutes. Vampires are ripping each other's heads off. Giant wolves are throwing them around like chew toys, and one by one each of Bella's friends and family die around her. You can actually hear people in the audience react as each named character dies, and none of this happened in the book, which was criticized for its lack of climax. As each minute goes on, it feels like they improved the film's story to give it a real sense of danger and excitement and payoff to the series. So crap's intense. And right as they kill the big bad evil guy, the camera fades to black, pulls out, and reveals that all of it was a vision. The last 10 minutes didn't happen. It was someone seeing a future that might happen. No one died. Just a bunch of vampires and wolves standing around staring at each other in silence. Then they all walk away, alive and well. The crowd groans. A girl up front shouts, "Are you crapping me?" Everyone sits back in their seat. No one cares about what's happening on screen anymore. Some people are laughing because someone hit the undo button on the most exciting 10 minutes of the movie. Never have I seen a theater turn on a film so quickly and so hard. I was at one of the midnight premieres for this one, and saw the same thing. Several different people yelled "what the frick" when it showed it was all just a vision, and you could feel the disappointment in the crowd. So, this is gonna require some context. This was a little while ago. Back while I was in high school, the school loved to bring in speakers, which in retrospect was very kind of them, though many people thought it was a waste of time. On this particular day, the speaker was a decently famous poet, who I will not name for what I hope are obvious reasons. The talk was actually going pretty well, since she turned out to be very funny and was cracking jokes and going on long, entertaining tangents. It was close to the most engaged I'd seen the school. Then, she decided to go a more serious direction. Suicide. She went on a several-minute tangent about how suicide is selfish. That culminated in the fabulously awful quote, "People are like, oh, my life is so hard," and then just give up. How dare they? The entire room had gone freaking silent, because there was one thing she didn't know. The school had just had a suicide that had rocked the entire community. Completely ruined the talk, and the school was apologizing for days. Of course you shouldn't name her. What I don't get is why the school apologized for what she said. I'm guessing they were like, "Sorry we brought her here," but they couldn't have expected her to say that. She should have been the one apologizing to the whole school community. A girl OD at a festival in the middle of a headliner show. The crowd around immediately stopped dancing and turned all their phones' flashlights on and cleared a path for the medics. It was scary. When the Maple Leafs blew a 4-1 lead in the final 10 minutes of Game 7 in 2013. After the tying goal, the camera switched to the crowd of Toronto fans outside their arena where they had been rage face partying all night, and it was just sheer silence. I saw a kid get hit by a car and flung into a tree leaving the zoo when I was in kindergarten. 1 minute, everything was fine. A few moments later everyone was running around screaming. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.